We've decided to pay for Rachel's college. You're just more independent. That's what my father said. Over dinner, while chewing a forkful of mashed potatoes like he hadn't just shattered my world. I was 18, fresh off my acceptance letter to the School of Business at Northfield University, my dream school. I'd worked like hell to get in. AP classes, debate team, late nights tutoring other students just to build my resume, and all I wanted was a conversation. Not even money, just a chance to talk about how we'd make it work together. Instead, my parents looked at me like I was being unreasonable, like asking for fairness was some kind of entitlement. Rachel, my younger sister, had barely opened her college acceptance email that same week when they started planning campus tours. She hadn't even declared a major yet. Didn't matter. She was a communicator, social, full of potential. Me, I was practical, tough, self-sufficient. Code 4. You'll figure it out on your own, like always. I didn't cry. Not in front of them. I pushed the rest of my food around my plate and said nothing. Mom smiled like she just delivered a compliment. You're strong, Olivia. You always have been. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had just happened. The dreams I'd carefully built over 4 years, the business career I'd envisioned, the classrooms I could already smell, suddenly felt like fantasies for someone else. They had chosen her, and I wasn't worth the investment. But here's the thing about being the girl nobody bets on. Once you realize you're alone, you stop waiting for a rescue. You start building the ship yourself. I didn't know it then, but that was the night everything began. The pain, the fire, the plan. Looking back, the dinner table conversation wasn't a surprise. It was just the final chapter of a story that had been quietly unfolding my entire life. Growing up in a quiet suburb outside of Denver, our house always looked picture perfect from the outside. White shutters, manicured lawn, wind chimes on the porch. But inside, there was a balance that never quite balanced. Rachel was the golden one. 2 years younger, blonde curls, a laugh that our mother called infectious. She was the kind of child strangers stopped to compliment in grocery stores. "Oh, what a darling girl," they'd say. "She could be on a toothpaste commercial," and my mom would beam like she already was. Meanwhile, I was the serious one, the one who read silently in the corner, who got straight A's and asked for a microscope one Christmas. I didn't need praise. I needed space to grow. But that wasn't what got attention in our house. I still remember our birthdays. Rachel got the big parties, bounce houses, bakery cakes, matching plates and napkins. I got homemade cupcakes and we'll just do something small this year. One year I found out the real reason Rachel's party had maxed out the budget. When I made honor roll in middle school, I taped the certificate to the fridge myself. No one said anything. But when Rachel won Most Enthusiastic Camper at her summer theater program, my mom cried. I tried not to be bitter. I told myself they're just wired differently. I worked harder, took on responsibilities, got myself to and from every after-school club, every math league tournament. Rachel got rides to cheer practice, warm lunches, special notes in her backpack, and when I asked once, just once, why it seemed like she got more, my dad gave me this look, like I had crossed some invisible line. "She needs more encouragement," he said. "You don't. You're already driven." What I heard was, "She's lovable. You're useful." There was only one person in my world who saw through all that. My grandmother, Nana June. She lived 2 hours away in a small mountain town, and every summer I'd spend 2 weeks with her. Those 2 weeks were the only time I ever felt truly seen. She'd sit with me on the porch in the evening, handing me lemonade while I told her about my goals, my business ideas, my spreadsheets, the budget planner I started keeping at age 12. She never laughed, never told me to be realistic, just listened, nodded, and said, "You've got a mind built to change things, Liv. Don't let anyone shrink it to fit their comfort." Those words became my quiet armor, because deep down, I knew the truth. If I wanted anyone to believe in me, I had to go first. The morning after that dinner, I opened my laptop and stared at the Westfield tuition breakdown like it was a blueprint for Everest. I didn't have savings, no college fund, no rich uncle. All I had was a minimum wage job at the grocery store and a head full of numbers. And the sting of my father's words still lodged in my chest. "You're just more independent." So I did what independent girls do. I got to work. Every morning before school, I stocked shelves. After school, I babysat for 2 families in the neighborhood. On weekends, I tutored younger students in algebra and AP Econ. By senior year, I was averaging 32 hours a week, on top of classes, clubs, and a part-time internship I landed through sheer persistence. Sleep became optional. Pride didn't exist. I filled out every scholarship application I could find, local, national, even obscure ones for students with red pens in their backpacks. I wrote essays until my fingers cramped. Meanwhile, at home, Rachel was being measured for her dorm room curtains. Mom was shopping for monogrammed bath towels. Dad called the university to ask about their honors parent orientation. No one asked how my applications were going. No one offered to review an essay. I was the background noise to Rachel's main event. Except for Nana June. She mailed me envelopes filled with newspaper clippings about women CEOs, a used but pristine graphing calculator, a handwritten card that said, "You are the kind of rare that takes time to be seen. But once you are, the world won't forget you." That card sat taped to the wall above my desk the night I got the email. Congratulations. You've been accepted to Westfield University. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just exhaled hard, then whispered, "I'm going, one way or another." My final scholarship count? 8. Some were $500. One was $5,000. Added to loans and my savings, it was just enough to cover tuition for the first year. Housing was another battle. Rachel got the premium dorm suite, paid in full by our parents. I found a Craigslist ad for a shared apartment 45 minutes from campus. The room was tiny, the plumbing sketchy, and the neighborhood loud. But it was mine. When move-in day arrived, Rachel had a send-off brunch with extended family, a photo shoot, and matching college-bound t-shirts with mom and dad. I packed my things into used suitcases and cardboard boxes. Nana June gave me a hug, slipped me a $100 bill, and told me to call if I ever needed to cry without judgment. No speeches, no parade. I drove to Westfield in my sputtering hand-me-down Toyota and carried my own boxes up 3 flights of stairs. That night, lying on a second-hand mattress with streetlights bleeding through the blinds, I let myself cry, quietly, briefly. Not out of self-pity, but because I knew this was going to be brutal, and I had no one coming to catch me if I fell. But I also knew something else, something louder than the ache. I didn't come this far to be invisible. Westfield was big enough that Rachel and I didn't cross paths much, but not so big that I could forget she was there. We were in different programs. She majored in communications, floated through freshman seminars, and joined a sorority by week 3. I was deep in the School of Business, juggling microeconomics, financial modeling, and a schedule so tight it left me 5-minute windows to eat. But I saw the differences. Everyone did. While Rachel posted dorm selfies with fairy lights and captioned brunch pics with college life, I was calculating whether I could afford both textbooks and groceries. She had a brand new laptop, a dorm fridge stocked with name-brand snacks, and Uber rides to class when it rained. I had a 5-year-old laptop that overheated during PowerPoint presentations and walked to campus, rain or shine, because the bus didn't run that early. She got care packages from home, monogrammed towels, bath bombs, handmade cookies. I once got a text that said, "Hope things are going okay. Love, Mom." No period. No name. I tried not to be bitter. Truly. But every time I passed her on campus surrounded by friends, laughing like she had no weight on her shoulders, a part of me cracked a little deeper. And then came the emails. Rachel Grant has been featured in the university newsletter for her volunteer work with the campus radio station. The newsletter? Seriously? I was out here holding down 2 part-time jobs, maintaining a 4.0 GPA, and just got invited to apply for the competitive business leadership program, and not one professor knew my name yet. No cameras, no mentions, just quiet excellence in the background. It didn't matter. Not to them. Not yet. But there was one person who did notice. Professor Camden, my accounting instructor. A no-nonsense woman in her 50s with a sharp eye and sharper expectations. One day after class, she stopped me in the hallway. "You work 2 jobs, don't you?" she asked. I blinked, caught off guard. "Yes, ma'am. How'd you?" "You submit assignments at 1 a.m. sharp. Never late, never sloppy. That kind of discipline doesn't come from luxury." I didn't know what to say. She handed me a flyer. "Business Scholars Cohort. Apply. You're exactly who it's for." That moment shifted something. It reminded me that even if I wasn't being paraded around in newsletters or given monthly care packages, I had something Rachel didn't: resilience forged in silence. And in the business world, that's often the winning edge. It was sometime in junior year when the cracks finally showed. I had just finished a night shift at the campus cafe and was heading back to my apartment, half frozen and running on 2 hours of sleep, when I saw her, Rachel, sitting on the curb outside the library, alone, eyes red, hair messy in a way that wasn't curated. She looked cracked open. I almost walked past. Honestly, I wanted to, but something in her face stopped me. Rachel? I asked, cautious. She jumped slightly, then looked up, and for the first time in forever, the mask was gone. No charm, no gloss, just a scared, exhausted 21-year-old girl who was clearly unraveling. "I'm failing my senior seminar," she said, voice flat. "If I don't redo my entire research project, I won't graduate." I blinked. "What? How?" "I plagiarized part of it," she whispered. "Not on purpose, I swear. I didn't understand how to structure the methodology. I panicked. I copied something from an old article without citing it right. My professor flagged it. Does Mom know?" She let out a bitter laugh. "Please, I told her I'm fine. She thinks I'm planning a graduation trip to Italy." I sat down beside her, even though my body screamed to go home and sleep. "Why didn't you ask for help?" She looked at me. Really looked. "Because you've always made it look so easy." I almost laughed. "Easy?" "I've been working 60 hours a week since freshman year," I said, my voice low. "I've skipped meals, slept on library couches. You think I didn't want to give up?" Her face crumpled. "I didn't know." "Of course you didn't," I said, not unkindly. "You never had to see." We sat there in silence for a moment, the wind biting at our coats. Then I did something I never thought I would. I pulled out my laptop. "Okay," I said. "Let's look at your project." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "You're going to help me? I'm not doing it for you, but I'll show you how to fix what you broke." Over the next 3 weeks, we met almost every night. I walked her through data sourcing, proper citation structures, and how to build a clean methodology section. It was exhausting, on top of my own workload, but there was something healing about it too. Like all the years of silence between us were cracking open and letting something real in. One night, as we took a break over gas station hot chocolate, she asked, "Why are you even helping me?" I looked at her for a long time. "Because I wish someone had helped me." She didn't say anything for a while. Then, softly, "I'm sorry, Olivia, for all of it." And for the first time in our lives, I believe she meant it. The email came on a Thursday. Subject line, confidential, graduation opportunity. I almost deleted it, thinking it was a survey or some automated reminder, but something made me open it. "Miss Grant, you've been nominated by the faculty of the School of Business to deliver the 2024 student address at commencement. Please reply to confirm your interest. Details to follow." I blinked, read it again, then a third time. For a moment, I just sat there, frozen in the campus cafe, surrounded by the hiss of steam wands and chatter, while the words rearranged my entire world. Me? Deliver the speech? I wasn't on student council. I wasn't part of any legacy family. My name wasn't listed in the glossy Top Campus Voices brochure they sent to donors every spring. But someone, multiple someones, had seen what I'd built, what I'd endured, and they thought I had something worth saying. I confirmed my acceptance within 10 minutes. What I didn't tell anyone, not even Rachel, was that the committee asked me to keep it under wraps until the official announcement. "We want to preserve the moment," the coordinator had said. I understood. They wanted the surprise. And deep down, so did I. In the weeks that followed, I poured every spare second into writing that speech. Between job interviews and finals and helping Rachel finish her project, I drafted version after version. But nothing felt right until I stopped trying to sound impressive and started writing like the girl who sat alone on move-in day with $100 from her grandma and nothing else. I wrote about earning respect without being handed opportunity. I wrote about being underestimated and how that's sometimes the greatest gift. And I wrote about resilience. Not the shiny Pinterest quote kind, but the kind forged in silence in skipped meals and jobs no one claps for. By the time I hit send on the final draft, I knew. This wasn't just a speech. It was my reckoning. Then, out of nowhere, another door opened. Professor Camden pulled me aside after my capstone presentation. There's a partner at Sycamore Consulting who watched your case analysis, she said. They were impressed, really impressed. 2 days later, I was in a Zoom interview with a panel of executives. A week after that, I had an offer, full-time analyst. Starting salary, $92,000. Signing bonus, relocation covered, full benefits, mentorship program. I sat on the floor of my apartment when I got the call. No one else around, no champagne, no congratulatory dinner, just me. And the quiet sound of everything changing. I told Nana June first. She cried. I cried. I never told my parents. Not yet. I wanted them to see it, feel it, not through a phone call or a forwarded email, but with their own eyes. As I stood on the stage they never expected me to reach. The morning of graduation felt like something out of a movie. Blue sky, no wind, not even a hint of spring rain. It was almost eerie, like the universe had pressed pause, just for me. I dressed carefully. Under my gown was the one nice dress I owned, the one I'd bought from a thrift store and tailored by hand with a YouTube tutorial. Around my neck, I wore the pearl pendant Nana June gave me when I got into Westfield, the only person who knew what was coming. I arrived early, as usual, and stood in line with the other business school graduates. Caps tilted, tassels straight. People laughed, posed for selfies, FaceTimed family members waving from hotel rooms. Then I saw them. My parents, front row, sitting between rows of extended family they'd invited to celebrate Rachel's big day. My mother wore a pale yellow dress, the same one she wore to Rachel's high school graduation. Dad looked like he had stepped out of a country club catalog. Next to them, Rachel scanned the crowd until she spotted me. Her face broke into a real smile. She mouthed, "You ready?" I nodded. I wasn't sure if I was, but there was no turning back. We filed into the arena, that same slow march to the sound of the brass band and polite applause. I didn't look at my parents as I passed them, but I felt their eyes. The ceremony began with all the usual speeches. Dean Rodriguez welcomed the families. The president gave a predictably dry talk about emerging leaders of tomorrow. Then came the moment I'd been waiting for. Now, the university president said, we'd like to invite a very special graduate from the School of Business to share her journey and reflections. Please welcome Olivia Grant. There was a beat of stunned silence, like someone had forgotten to clap. Then the applause started. Slow at first, then full. I walked up to the stage, heels clicking, heartbeat steady, eyes forward. I paused at the podium, took a breath, and looked out at the crowd. My parents looked stunned. Rachel's jaw actually dropped. And in that moment, I wasn't nervous. I was ready. 4 years ago, I arrived at Westfield with 2 suitcases, no financial support, and a job already lined up for the same day I moved in. While some of my classmates unpacked dorm decor and signed up for club fairs, I memorized the bus routes between campus and my apartment and the quickest way to get from shift to lecture without missing either. I spoke slowly, clearly, from the heart. I wasn't handed opportunity. I built it, brick by brick, application by application, job by job. I worked early mornings at a diner, late nights at a bookstore, and spent every hour in between building a future no one else saw coming. I paused, let it breathe. So to anyone who's ever been told, you're just more independent, or we had to make a choice and it wasn't you, or who's been loved less because they seemed like they needed less, I want you to know, you were never the problem. You were just underestimated. There were tears in the audience. Some were mine. Today, I graduate with highest honors. Today, I accept a full-time offer at Sycamore Consulting. And today, I stand not as the overlooked, but as the one who overcame. The applause was thunderous. As I stepped off the stage, I caught Rachel's eyes. She was crying, openly unashamed. My parents? Still frozen. No words, just pale faces trying to process what had just happened. The daughter they never bet on had just won the whole game. The reception hall was buzzing with families taking photos, handing out flowers, hugging their overachieving children. I stood to the side near a cluster of balloons, watching as classmates swarmed their parents, proudly flashing diplomas. I knew eventually I'd have to face them, my parents, but I wasn't rushing it. I was mid-conversation with Professor Camden when I felt a hand on my shoulder. Rachel. She didn't say anything at first. Just pulled me into the tightest hug she'd ever given me. Her voice cracked when she whispered, "You killed it." I pulled back to look at her. Her eyes were red, mascara smudged. "I had no idea," she said. "I mean, I knew you were working hard, but That speech. She shook her head, speechless. Thanks, I said softly. Really. Then I saw them approaching. My mom, my dad, walking with the hesitation of people entering unfamiliar terrain. They looked smaller than I remembered, not physically, but in presence, like something had unraveled in them during that ceremony and they weren't quite sure how to put it back together. Olivia, my mom began, trying to smile. Your speech was impressive. Very polished, my dad added. We had no idea that you were involved in so much. I said nothing, because what could I say to that? I let the silence sit, just long enough to make them uncomfortable. Then I finally asked, why didn't you ask? They looked at each other. My mom blinked quickly. My dad cleared his throat. We didn't mean to exclude you, she said. You always seemed, okay, self-sufficient. You mean invisible, I corrected. And let's be honest, you chose not to see. You were too busy watching Rachel shine to notice I was burning myself alive just to stay in the same race. Rachel looked down. She's right. There it was. A pause, then a shift. My dad let out a long breath. You proved us wrong today. I held his gaze. I didn't do it to prove anything. I did it because I had no other choice. He nodded slowly. Still, we're proud of you. It was the first time I'd ever heard him say that. And maybe 5 years ago, it would have cracked me wide open. Maybe it would have filled a hole I didn't know how to name. But now, it just landed, softly, without shaking the ground beneath me. Thank you, I said. But I didn't need your pride to get here. I needed it years ago, and I learned how to move without it. Mom blinked again. Maybe we could start over. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either, because I knew one thing for sure. This time, the story wasn't about them anymore. Rachel looped her arm through mine. The consulting firm, you really got the job? I nodded. Start next month. Full benefits. $92 plus a bonus. Her jaw dropped. That's more than Dad makes. He looked mildly horrified. I smiled politely. I hope it is, I said. I've earned every dollar. We posed for a few awkward family photos, but the emotional gravity had shifted. I was no longer the overlooked older daughter. I was the woman who had rewritten the narrative. That evening, Rachel and I sat outside the small Italian restaurant near campus, the one with fairy lights strung across the patio. The graduation crowd had thinned out, and the air finally felt still, like the world had exhaled with me. I hadn't planned to go out after the ceremony, but Rachel insisted. It's not about them tonight, she'd said. It's about you, about what you built. For once, I didn't argue. We toasted with cheap Prosecco she'd picked up on the way. Her idea, not mine. And as we clinked glasses, I looked at her and realized something I hadn't before. She was changing. Not overnight, but genuinely. You know, she said, swirling the bubbles in her glass, I used to think I was the one carrying the pressure. That being the favorite came with its own weight. I raised an eyebrow. And now? Now I know that pressure without reality checks is just entitlement. I was handed everything and told I was special. You were forged. That's different. I didn't say anything. I let her words sit there, sharp and honest and overdue. I want to do better, she added. Not just with you, with myself. I nodded. Then start by owning your space and not letting anyone else define it for you. She smiled. You really would have made a good professor. I laughed. Maybe one day. We ate slowly, like neither of us wanted the night to end. And honestly, I didn't, because something was happening that I'd spent years thinking was impossible. We were becoming sisters for real. After dinner, I walked back to my apartment alone. The streets were quiet, moonlight catching on the hood of my dented Toyota parked out front. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and paused. Everything was still the same. Peeling paint, buzzing fridge, the chair with the one uneven leg. But I was different now. In 2 weeks, I'd be moving to New York. Sycamore's relocation package had already covered my new lease deposit. I had a modern studio, 5 subway stops from the office, full benefits, retirement matching. A mentor assigned to me. I'd even be managing 2 interns starting mid-July. None of it came easy, but all of it was mine. I sat on my bed and pulled out the worn envelope Nana June had sent with me freshman year. The one I'd never opened, labeled, "For when it's all yours." Inside was a simple card. The world will try to measure you by what it gives you, but don't forget, you're more powerful for what you gave yourself. There were tears, quiet ones, not of sadness, not of anger, just release, because I wasn't bitter anymore. I wasn't broken. I was free. The next morning, I packed the last of my books, called Nana, and confirmed she'd be flying out for a week to visit my new place. Rachel would be coming too. Not as a tag-along, but as a friend. And when my parents texted asking if I wanted to get dinner before leaving town, I didn't answer right away. Eventually, I responded, maybe another time, because right now, I was choosing something else. I was choosing peace. I was choosing me. 3 months after graduation, I was sitting in a glass-walled conference room in Midtown Manhattan, reviewing a pitch deck for a $2.3 million logistics overhaul. The city buzzed outside, yellow cabs, espresso carts, the sound of ambition humming through every block. And me? I was at the table. Analyst at Sycamore Consulting. Full salary, benefits. My name on the slide deck. My opinion asked for and valued. Every now and then, I'd catch a glimpse of my reflection in those shiny windows and barely recognize the woman staring back. Pressed blazer, quiet confidence, coffee in one hand, strategy notes in the other. But I never forgot where she came from. Not once, because I still lived with the memory of that night in my childhood kitchen, hearing my dad say, "We're paying for Rachel. You're just more independent." I carried it not as a wound anymore, but as a reminder of how far I'd come, of how much further I could go. One afternoon in early fall, I received an email from the Westfield Business Department. They were launching a new scholarship fund for underrepresented students with financial need, and they wanted to name it after me, the Olivia Grant Resilience Award. I read the email 3 times. My hand actually shook. They explained that it would support one student a year, someone who, like me, had no safety net. No family support, just drive, just hunger, just potential. They wanted a quote to put on the application page, so I wrote, "Being overlooked was the best thing that ever happened to me. It taught me how to rise without applause and succeed without permission." I didn't tell my parents about the award. Not because I wanted to hide it, but because it wasn't for them. It was for the girl I used to be. The one with the secondhand suitcase, walking to campus before sunrise. The one who didn't cry when she was told she wasn't worth investing in. The one who turned silence into strategy. Later that month, Rachel came to visit my new apartment. We cooked pasta, laughed about her new job at an education nonprofit, and talked about everything from health insurance to heartbreak. She was different now, grounded, curious, a little less sure of herself in the best way. As we drank tea on my tiny balcony, she said, I think they still don't understand. Not really." "I know," I said, "but I do. And that's enough." Then she added something I wasn't expecting. "I want to start a fund, too, for first-gen students. Not a big one, but I want to help." That's when I knew, whatever bitterness we'd grown up under, it didn't win. We had. A few weeks later, Nana June flew in. We walked through Central Park and took photos in front of fountains and street performers. One evening, I gave her a framed copy of the scholarship email. She held it for a long time, then looked up at me with the same quiet certainty she'd always had. "I told you," she whispered. "You were never invisible. They just didn't know how to look." I hugged her tightly. "Thanks for seeing me. Always." As we stood there, the city alive all around us, I realized something. This was the real return on investment. Not just the job or the money or the applause, but the fact that I had become exactly the woman I'd once needed. Someone who didn't just survive the silence. Someone who rewrote it. Thanks for listening. If this story found a quiet corner in your heart, don't forget to subscribe. And if you feel ready, share your own story in the comments. Your voice matters. It always has.